Sometimes the simplest things in life can turn into the biggest lessons. Today, I want to talk about something that sounds funny at first, maybe even a little strange. The phrase is, "Never put your tongue here." It sounds like a warning you'd see on a sign, right? But there's a deeper message behind it, one about self-control, discipline, and the power of words. When we talk about the tongue, we're not just talking about that small muscle in your mouth. We're talking about what it represents: your speech, your reactions, your ability to build or destroy with just a few words. The tongue has no bones, but it can break hearts, end relationships, and destroy opportunities if not controlled. It can also heal, inspire, and open doors if used with wisdom. So when I say, never put your tongue here, I'm not just talking about what you shouldn't taste or touch. I'm talking about what you shouldn't say. There are places your tongue should never go. There are conversations you shouldn't enter, opinions you shouldn't share, and arguments you shouldn't entertain. Not everything deserves a response. Not every rumor needs a reaction. Not every insult requires you to clap back. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, and restraint is stronger than retaliation. We live in a world where everyone wants to talk. Everyone wants to have the last word, to prove a point, to show they're right. Social media has made it even worse. A simple post can spark a war in the comments. People argue with strangers for hours, defending things that don't even add value to their lives. You see it all the time. Friends falling out, relationships ending, reputations damaged, all because of words that should never have been said. Never put your tongue here means recognizing when to stay quiet. It means understanding that not every truth needs to be spoken. Sometimes what's true isn't helpful. Sometimes what's right in your eyes might be wrong in timing. There's a difference between honesty and recklessness. You can tell the truth without tearing someone down. You can express yourself without losing your peace. Think about how many times you've said something in anger that you later wished you could take back. Words can't be unsaid. Once they leave your mouth, they travel, they multiply, they grow. They become memories in someone's heart, shaping how they see you and how they see themselves. That's the danger of the tongue. It's powerful, so before you speak, ask yourself, is this kind? Is it necessary? Is it the right time? If it fails those tests, maybe it's better left unsaid. There's also another side to this. Sometimes never put your tongue here means don't join certain conversations at all. Gossip, for instance, is one of the most destructive habits we normalize. We dress it up as sharing information, venting, or being concerned. But the truth is, when we talk about people behind their backs, we're feeding negativity. We're placing our tongues where they don't belong. And it always comes back. The same mouth that gossips about others will one day be the topic of someone else's gossip. Protect your peace by keeping your tongue out of other people's business. When you learn to keep quiet about others, you build trust. You create space for real connections. People feel safe around you because they know you won't use their stories as conversation starters. The person who can hold their tongue earns respect, while the one who speaks carelessly loses it. There's a proverb that says, "Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent." It's a simple truth. Sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one who says the least. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means control. It means you understand that power isn't in shouting louder, but in choosing your words wisely. Now, let's talk about another place you shouldn't put your tongue: on negativity. Don't feed it. Don't speak it into your life. The things you say about yourself matter. When you constantly say, "I can't," "I'm not enough," "I'll never make it," your tongue is setting limitations on your life. Words shape reality. If you keep speaking defeat, don't be surprised when your life starts to mirror your speech. Be careful what you confess over yourself. Speak life. Even when things look bad, find something positive to say. Say, I'm learning, instead of I'm failing. Say, I'm growing, instead of I'm stuck. What you say to yourself becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes what you attract. So never put your tongue in places of self-doubt or despair. Use it to create hope. There's also the temptation to use your tongue to prove yourself. Sometimes silence is mistaken for weakness, and people will push you to speak just so they can argue. But maturity is learning that you don't need to explain yourself to everyone. The people who matter will understand without you saying a word. The ones who don't will never understand, no matter how much you say. So don't waste your energy trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Keep your tongue still and let your actions speak instead. Control doesn't mean suppression. It doesn't mean you never speak up. There are times when you must use your voice to stand up for yourself, to defend the truth, to speak for those who can't. But even then, let your words come from a place of wisdom, not emotion. Emotion makes you impulsive. Wisdom makes you intentional. The difference between the two is timing and tone. Let's be honest, holding your tongue isn't easy. Sometimes you feel the heat rising inside, and everything in you wants to respond. But in those moments, remind yourself what silence can save you from. It can save you from regret, from misunderstanding, from conflict that doesn't need to exist. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you strengthen your character. You learn self-mastery, and that's something only experience can teach. So, when you hear the phrase, never put your tongue here, remember, it's more than just advice about speech. It's a principle for life. There are things that deserve your silence more than your opinion. There are moments when holding back says more about your strength than speaking up ever could. And there are situations where the wisest thing you can do is smile, breathe, and walk away. The tongue is small, but its impact is enormous. You can't control what others say, but you can control your own. You can decide where to place your words and where to hold them back. You can choose to use your voice to heal instead of harm, to build instead of break, to encourage instead of discourage. And when you make that choice, you become someone whose presence brings peace, not noise. So, the next time you're tempted to speak out of anger, to gossip, to argue, or to doubt yourself, pause. Remind yourself, never put your tongue here, because sometimes silence is not just golden, it's powerful. It protects your peace, preserves your dignity, and proves that real strength is not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. When you start to think about it, the tongue is like a small steering wheel that can turn the entire direction of your life. You can steer yourself toward peace or chaos, toward connection or isolation, simply by what you say and how you say it. Some people spend years trying to undo the damage caused by a few reckless words. A single argument, a careless comment, or an outburst spoken in the wrong moment can change everything. That's why it's so important to understand the weight of the tongue. It's light in the mouth, but heavy in its consequences. We live in a time where everyone is told to speak their truth. And while there's power in being honest, there's also wisdom in discernment. Speaking your truth doesn't mean saying everything that crosses your mind. It means knowing when, how, and to whom to say it. It's about being intentional with your voice, because words have energy. They carry emotions, intentions, and influence. When you release them, they start working either for you or against you. So before you let them out, make sure they're working in your favor. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Think about the moments in your life when you decided not to respond. Maybe someone said something rude, and you held your peace. Maybe you were tempted to defend yourself, but chose not to. In those moments, you didn't lose power. You gained it. You showed that you were in control of yourself. And that kind of control intimidates people who thrive on reaction. Because reaction gives power away, but composure keeps it. There are also times when keeping your tongue in check can protect not just your peace but your progress. Some dreams are fragile when they're new. If you start talking about them too early, before they have roots, people's opinions can crush them. It's not that everyone is out to get you, but not everyone understands your vision. Some people can't see what you see, and their doubt can start to plant seeds in your mind. That's why it's important to know when to keep quiet about your goals. Not every plan needs to be shared. Let your results speak instead. Never put your tongue here can also mean not putting it in spaces of complaint. There are people who use their words to magnify problems instead of finding solutions. They complain about work, relationships, money, and life in general. But complaining doesn't change anything. It only trains your mind to focus on what's wrong. The more you talk about what you don't like, the more it grows. Instead, use your words to speak what you want to see. Shift your focus from the problem to the possibility. The energy you put into complaining could be used to create change. The truth is, the tongue reveals what's in the heart. If bitterness fills you, it will come out in your speech. If gratitude fills you, it will also come out. That's why guarding your tongue starts with guarding your heart. What you feed your mind and emotions eventually finds its way out of your mouth. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, gossip, and complaints, you'll start to sound like that. But if you fill yourself with kindness, knowledge, and calm, your speech will reflect it naturally. It's interesting how sometimes the people who talk the most say the least, and those who speak rarely say what's most valuable. The difference lies in intention. When you speak with purpose, people listen differently. Your words carry weight. You don't need to raise your voice. Your presence and calm make people pay attention. That kind of power doesn't come from volume. It comes from discipline. It comes from knowing that words are not cheap currency. They're valuable, and you spend them wisely. Another thing to remember is that you don't have to respond to everything that offends you. Sometimes silence is the loudest response. When someone tries to provoke you, they're looking for a reaction. When you don't give it to them, you take their control away. You show that their words don't move you, and that is a strength not everyone has. The moment you stop explaining yourself to those who don't deserve your energy, you free yourself. You stop letting your emotions be controlled by someone else's behavior. There's also something to be said about learning to apologize when your tongue slips. Because no one gets this right all the time. We all say things we shouldn't, out of frustration or pain. But the difference between maturity and pride is the ability to admit when you've spoken wrong. Saying "I'm sorry" doesn't make you small, it makes you accountable. It shows that you value relationships more than being right. The same tongue that can wound can also heal if you use it with humility. Sometimes we use our tongues to speak against ourselves without even realizing it. We say things like "I'm so unlucky," and "nothing ever works out for me," or "I'm not good enough." Those words build a cage around your confidence. You start to live according to the limits you've spoken. Instead, practice speaking words of belief. Tell yourself, "I can learn, I can grow, I can change." You might not feel it at first, but over time your mind starts to align with your words. What you say consistently becomes what you see eventually. Think about how much lighter your life would be if you stopped using your tongue to defend your worth. You don't need to convince anyone that you're good enough, talented enough, or deserving enough. Just keep showing up, keep doing the work, and let the results speak. People will always have opinions. Some will misunderstand you, some will misjudge you, but their misunderstanding doesn't define your truth. So save your energy. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every lie deserves correction. The more you grow, the more you'll realize that your peace depends on your ability to hold your tongue. You'll meet people who test your patience, situations that tempt your temper, and moments that challenge your calm. But if you can keep control over your mouth, you'll find that life becomes easier to navigate. Because when you stop reacting to everything, you stop being controlled by everything. Sometimes keeping your tongue in check is an act of love. Love for yourself, because you choose peace over chaos. Love for others, because you choose to protect their dignity even when you're hurt. Love for your future, because you don't let temporary emotions make permanent damage. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just chooses silence where noise would only make things worse. It's easy to talk. It's harder to listen, but it's in listening that we learn the most. When you listen more than you speak, you start to understand people better. You pick up on their emotions, their insecurities, their hopes. You stop reacting and start responding. And there's a big difference between the two. Reacting is emotional, responding is intentional. When you respond, your words come from understanding, not impulse. So maybe that's what this lesson really is about: learning the art of control, the art of knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet, the art of knowing that silence doesn't mean surrender, it means strength. The tongue can start fires or put them out. It can destroy trust or build it. It can create pain or bring peace. The choice is always yours. Every word you speak is a seed, and one day you'll have to live with the garden you've planted. So choose carefully where you place your tongue. Use it to bless, not curse. Use it to uplift, not tear down. Use it to express gratitude, not bitterness. Because the person who learns to control their tongue has mastered one of the hardest parts of being human: the ability to think before speaking, to feel without reacting, and to love without hurting. That kind of power doesn't come from talking more. It comes from talking less and meaning more. There are days when you'll feel the pressure building inside you, when your emotions rise like a wave and everything in you wants to speak. Maybe someone has wronged you. Maybe life has cornered you, and the only relief that seems close is to let your words pour out. But in those moments, the measure of who you are isn't found in what you say. It's found in what you choose not to. You can speak your pain, but you can also let your silence speak louder than your frustration. There's power in restraint, even when it feels like weakness. Because sometimes the silence you keep is the very thing that protects your dignity. Think about how much trouble we could save ourselves if we thought twice before speaking once. So many relationships break, not because of what was done, but because of what was said afterward. You can forgive an action easier than you can forget a cruel word. Words carve deeper wounds because they echo long after the moment has passed. They replay in the quiet, they linger in memory, and they shape how people see you. When you understand that, you start treating your words like currency. You spend them carefully, not carelessly. There are times when the tongue becomes a weapon, but there are also times when it becomes a shield. It can defend others, protect those who can't speak for themselves, and comfort those who have lost their voice. The same energy we use to gossip can be used to advocate. The same breath used to criticize can be used to console. It's all in how we choose to use what's already in us. When your words become a safe place for others, people will remember you for your kindness long after they forget your mistakes. Sometimes people think silence means you have nothing to say, but often silence means you have too much wisdom to waste it. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the most powerful one. Power can be quiet. It can be measured, calm, deliberate. When you've mastered your tongue, you don't need to prove yourself through noise. Your peace becomes your presence, and people feel it. You don't chase attention, you attract respect. There's also the danger of using your tongue to tell your plans too soon. Not everyone who listens to you claps for you. Some people are waiting, quietly hoping to see you fail so they can say they knew it. That's why you must learn to move in silence. Let your work speak for you. Let your growth be your announcement. You don't have to broadcast every dream. Protect it until it's strong enough to stand on its own. The world doesn't need to know everything you're working on. It just needs to see the results when they're ready. It's also important to remember that your tone matters just as much as your words. You can say the right thing the wrong way and lose your message completely. A kind word said harshly still cuts. A truth said arrogantly still offends. Communication isn't just about speaking fact. It's about considering how your words will land. The people who communicate well don't just know what to say, they know how to say it. They understand that the goal isn't to win arguments, it's to connect hearts. We often think we're being honest when we're really just being harsh. Honesty doesn't require cruelty. You can tell someone the truth and still leave their dignity intact. You can correct without condemning. You can be firm without being unkind. It takes more strength to be gentle than to be blunt, because gentleness requires thought. It requires empathy. Anyone can speak their mind, but not everyone can speak with compassion. If you listen to the way some people talk, you'll notice that their words are often heavier than they realize. They speak like they're tossing stones, unaware that someone else is catching them. When you speak from anger, you throw stones. When you speak from understanding, you build bridges. The same tongue that can destroy a connection can also restore it. It all depends on the spirit behind your words. Another thing that often goes unnoticed is how silence can teach. When you stop talking and start observing, you begin to see patterns you never noticed before. You see who listens and who waits to reply. You see who speaks to understand and who speaks to dominate. Silence opens your ears in ways that noise never can. It helps you read the room, feel the energy, and decide what's worth saying and what's better left unsaid. Not every situation needs your voice, and not every silence needs to be filled. There's a certain grace in knowing when to walk away from a conversation that's going nowhere. When arguments turn into circles, when people stop listening and start performing, step back. You're not losing by staying silent. You're conserving your energy for something that actually matters. There's a freedom that comes with realizing you don't need to participate in every battle that invites you. There's also a lesson in how you speak to people you love. Familiarity can make us careless. We assume they'll always understand, always forgive, always stay. But even the people closest to you can grow distant when your words turn cold. Love needs gentle speech. It needs tenderness, even in disagreement. It's easy to be kind to strangers and sharp with those who share your table. But real character shows in how you speak to the people who hear your unfiltered voice every day. Speak life into the ones who matter most. They need it more than you think. And when it comes to yourself, remember that self-control over your tongue is also self-respect. When you can hold your words in heated moments, you show that you value your own peace more than temporary satisfaction. The person who provokes you loses power when you refuse to respond. You keep your dignity, and that's something no one can take once you've mastered it. Sometimes the best answer is silence, because silence doesn't mean ignorance. It means intelligence. It means you understand that words can complicate what silence can simplify. There's strength in letting people misunderstand you if explaining yourself would only drain your energy. Not every truth needs defense. Not every misjudgment needs correction. People see what they want to see, and your peace shouldn't depend on their perception. There's beauty in quiet confidence. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply exists. The person who has learned to control their tongue radiates that kind of peace. They've seen what chaos uncontrolled words can cause, and they've chosen calm instead. They've learned that silence is not the absence of power, it's the containment of it. You also learn, over time, that some of the most important conversations you'll ever have will be with yourself. You'll sit in silence, reflecting on the things you've said and the things you wish you hadn't. And that reflection, that pause, becomes the teacher that helps you grow. You start to notice your patterns, the way frustration creeps into your tone, the way pride slips into your sentences. You begin to catch yourself before the words leave your mouth. That's growth, that's maturity. It's not perfection, it's awareness. If you can learn to pause between your thoughts and your tongue, you can change the direction of almost any situation. The pause gives you time to think, to decide if what you're about to say is worth the space it will occupy. That small moment of control can save a friendship, preserve your reputation, or even keep peace within your home. People who know how to pause before speaking are often the ones who create harmony wherever they go. It's also worth saying that controlling your tongue doesn't mean silencing your truth. You can still speak up when it matters. You can still defend yourself with grace. The key is balance. It's knowing that words are tools, not weapons. When used well, they create understanding. When misused, they create distance. The goal is not to speak less, it's to speak better. And better speech doesn't mean polished speech. It means speech with heart. It means words that come from a place of clarity, not confusion. From empathy, not ego. The person who speaks with heart doesn't need fancy words. Their sincerity carries them. You can feel it when someone means what they say. Their words have warmth. They don't just pass through your ears, they stay with you. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that grows in people who have learned to manage their tongues. They become more observant, more patient, more grounded. They don't rush to speak, but when they do, their words carry the weight of thought. They don't compete for attention because they know attention fades, but respect lasts. They use their voices to build, to heal, to clarify, not to control. And when they choose silence, it's not emptiness, it's intention. In a world that constantly pushes us to react, to respond, to comment, to explain, learning to keep your tongue still is an act of strength. It's a reminder that you don't owe everyone a piece of your voice. You owe yourself peace of mind. And that peace often begins with silence, the kind that listens, observes, and speaks only when it truly adds something worth hearing. There's something incredibly revealing about how people use their words when no one is watching. The conversations we have behind closed doors, the things we say when we're angry or frustrated, those are the moments that show who we really are. It's easy to be polite in public, easy to sound wise when you're being listened to, but real character shows up in the quiet, unguarded moments. The tongue doesn't just speak thoughts, it exposes hearts. You can hide your actions, but the truth will always slip out through your words. That's why it's important to be mindful not only of what you say, but of the spirit behind it. Sometimes we confuse honesty with harshness. We say we're just being real, but the reality is that we often use honesty as a mask for unkindness. Being real doesn't mean being rude. You can tell someone the truth without cutting them down. You can speak with authority without arrogance. The goal isn't to silence yourself. It's to refine yourself. When you start thinking before speaking, you realize that most things don't need to be said, and the ones that do are best said with care. The tongue has the power to shift an atmosphere. You can walk into a room filled with tension and change it just by choosing words of peace. The same is true the other way around. You can bring chaos with careless speech. The energy you carry in your voice travels further than you think. People remember how your words made them feel long after they've forgotten the details of what you said. That's the unseen influence of your tongue. Many of the conflicts we face in life aren't caused by actions but by words. Friendships have ended because of something said in anger. Families have fractured over prideful exchanges. and opportunities have been lost because someone spoke too soon or too much. We often regret speaking far more than we regret staying silent. The trouble is, silence feels uncomfortable. It feels like surrender. But silence is actually power. It's the choice to stay centered when others are trying to pull you off balance. You might find that people mistake your silence for indifference or weakness. Let them. You don't have to prove the strength behind your quiet. Some people won't understand that silence can be the loudest form of self-control. They'll speak to fill the space, while you choose to preserve your energy. In the end, the one who keeps calm holds the real power, not because they won the argument, but because they refused to let words drag them into chaos. There's also a discipline in knowing when to speak encouragement into your own life. The world is filled with noise voices telling you what you can't do, what you'll never be, how far you still have to go. If you're not careful, you'll start repeating those same words to yourself. Your inner voice becomes a reflection of the negativity around you. That's why you need to guard not only your external words, but your internal ones too. What you tell yourself every day matters. If your thoughts are constantly harsh, your speech will follow. If your mind is filled with doubt, your voice will sound uncertain. So start feeding yourself better words. Speak to yourself with patience, with forgiveness, with faith. Every great communicator knows that listening is just as important as speaking. The best conversations happen when people listen to understand, not to respond. But listening takes humility. It means accepting that you don't always have the right answer or the sharpest opinion. It means giving space for others to express themselves fully before you speak. Sometimes your silence can make someone feel seen in a way your words never could. People remember listeners because they're rare. In a world of constant noise, a listening ear feels like peace. There's a kind of wisdom that grows from learning when to speak and when to stay quiet. When you speak too soon, you often speak from emotion. When you wait, you speak from understanding. The pause between emotion and response is where maturity lives. It's that tiny moment that separates reaction from reflection. Once you master that pause, you stop saying things you'll later regret. You become more intentional with your words, more aware of their impact. The tongue also reveals what we value most. If your speech is full of criticism, maybe you're chasing control. If it's full of gossip, maybe you're searching for relevance. But when your words carry grace, it shows that you value peace. You start realizing that peace is worth more than being right, that quiet confidence feels better than loud defense. You begin to find satisfaction not in winning arguments, but in keeping your spirit unshaken. Some people think being soft-spoken makes you weak, but softness is often the highest form of strength. It takes strength to stay kind when others are unkind. It takes strength to stay calm when provoked. And it takes strength to choose silence when speaking would make you feel powerful, but later fill you with regret. Softness doesn't mean you're timid. It means you're in control. You're aware of the force behind your words, and you choose to use it sparingly. It's also worth understanding that not every opinion deserves to be shared. We live in a world where people feel pressured to comment on everything, to share, to post, to react instantly. But wisdom is knowing when your silence adds more value than your voice. The loudest person in the room isn't always the one people respect. The person who can hold their tongue, who can observe and wait, often sees what others miss. They're not silent because they have nothing to say. They're silent because they're saving their words for when they matter most. When you start paying attention to your words, you'll also start noticing how they shape the energy around you. Have you ever met someone who just feels calm to be around? They rarely raise their voice, they choose their words carefully, and you leave their presence feeling better about yourself. That's the effect of a disciplined tongue. It turns speech into healing. It makes conversation feel like safety. You can be that person too, not by being perfect, but by being intentional. You'll also learn that silence can protect your relationships in ways you might not expect. Sometimes you'll want to correct, to challenge, to have the last word. But the moment you do, you risk building distance instead of understanding. Holding your tongue doesn't mean agreeing. It means valuing peace enough to wait for the right time. Some discussions don't need to happen in the heat of the moment. Waiting doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom in timing. When it comes to the people you love, your words are either water or fire. They can soothe or they can burn. The things you say during conflict linger long after the issue is resolved. You may forget the argument, but the tone, the words, the sharp edges, they leave marks. Sometimes saying less protects what you value most. It gives love space to breathe. It gives forgiveness a chance to grow. It's easy to speak when emotions are high, but it takes maturity to remain silent until clarity returns. You can always add words later, but you can never take them back. Silence gives you time to process what you're feeling, to understand whether your reaction is about the moment or something deeper. That pause can be the difference between hurting someone and healing a misunderstanding. There's another side to this too, learning not to internalize harmful words spoken to you. Just because someone says something doesn't make it true. People often speak from their own pain, their own insecurity. Don't let their words settle in your spirit. You can't control what others say, but you can control whether you accept it. Let go of the words that don't belong to you. Replace them with truth, with kindness, with peace. Over time, you'll find that guarding your tongue also guards your heart. It protects you from unnecessary conflict, from regret, from guilt. It gives you time to choose peace over impulse. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You become someone people trust, not because you always have something to say, but because they know when you do speak, it will matter. There's something timeless about the wisdom of a quiet tongue. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention. But it holds power. It holds respect. It carries grace. And in a world that measures importance by volume, being measured, being calm, being intentional becomes your quiet rebellion. Your voice becomes more powerful not because you use it more, but because you use it better. So every day, when you wake up and go about your life, remember the quiet discipline of speech. The choice to pause, the courage to stay silent when you could easily respond, the patience to wait until the right words come. Because in the end, your voice isn't just what people hear, it's what they feel. And when you've mastered the art of when and how to use it, you stop speaking just to be heard. You start speaking to make a difference. There are moments when your tongue becomes the bridge between peace and destruction, and what you decide to say determines which side you land on. Most of the time, it's not the big mistakes that ruin things. It's the little words we drop carelessly, the quick reactions that slip out when we're tired or angry. Those are the moments that test our self-control. It's easy to sound wise when life is calm, but your real discipline shows when emotions are loud. Holding your tongue when every part of you wants to release it is a quiet form of strength that not everyone masters. You'll start to notice that people who speak with intention often carry a sense of calm around them. They don't rush to answer, and they don't need to fill every silence. When they talk, you can hear the thought behind their words. It's like their speech has weight, not because they use fancy language, but because they understand the value of restraint. They know that a word spoken at the right time can build trust, while a careless one can destroy it. Sometimes silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've said enough before. You've learned that repeating yourself doesn't make people understand better, and explaining your worth doesn't make people value you more. There's a peace that comes when you stop arguing to be understood and start choosing your energy wisely. Some battles are fought with words, but others are won by walking away. The tongue doesn't need to prove every point. In relationships, especially, the tongue plays a dangerous game. The things you say to someone you love hold extra power. You can't speak to everyone the same way. Love needs a gentler language. When emotions are raw and the conversation is heated, that's when your words matter most. The moment you choose to stay calm instead of saying something you'll regret later, you're protecting something valuable. You're choosing the relationship over the argument, and that's not weakness, that's wisdom. There are also times when your tongue can keep you trapped. When you constantly speak about your limitations, you begin to live within them. Words create boundaries around your potential. If you keep saying, "I can't," your mind stops trying. If you keep calling yourself unlucky or unworthy, your actions start to align with that belief. You might not realize it, but every time you speak, you're either building walls or breaking them down. Your tongue can be the reason you stay stuck or the reason you rise. You can start shifting that simply by paying attention to the way you talk to yourself. When life gets hard, instead of saying, "I'll never get through this," try saying, "I'm learning something through this." That small change in language doesn't just sound better. It changes your posture toward life. It replaces helplessness with resilience. You start speaking power into your circumstances rather than surrendering to them. Words carry emotion. They vibrate with energy. Think about how one cruel comment can ruin someone's whole day, or how one kind sentence can lift them out of darkness. That's the kind of power sitting inside every one of us. The danger is, most people use it without realizing it. They talk without thought, and in doing so, they plant words that grow into consequences. You can't always control how others use their tongues, but you can control how you use yours. That choice alone can change the way you experience life. You'll also notice that people who control their tongues tend to have more peace. It's not that life treats them better, it's that they've learned to choose silence over unnecessary conflict. They don't chase validation, and they don't need to win every argument. They'd rather keep their peace than prove their point. And because of that, they move differently. Their calm becomes their shield. They walk through chaos untouched because they've learned the secret. Your tongue can either stir the storm or silence it. There will always be people who test your patience, who say things that make your blood boil, who throw words meant to provoke you. The easy thing to do is to throw words back. The hard thing, the thing that takes real maturity, is to smile, breathe, and walk away. Silence isn't a sign of defeat, it's a sign of mastery. It says, "I refuse to let your chaos become mine." You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes, peace comes from choosing to stay quiet, even when you have a great comeback ready. As you grow, you'll also see that some of the most meaningful things are better shown through actions than words. Apologies mean more when they're followed by change. Promises mean more when they're backed by consistency. Love means more when it's demonstrated in small, thoughtful ways. The tongue can express these things, but it can't replace them. Talking about what you'll do isn't the same as doing it. Real communication is when your words and actions speak the same language. The tongue also shapes how people see you. You can be talented, hardworking, and intelligent, but if your words are harsh or reckless, people will remember that more than anything else. Respect isn't built on what you know, it's built on how you treat others. The way you speak can either draw people to you or push them away. And once someone loses trust in your words, it's hard to earn it back. That's why integrity in speech matters. Say what you mean what you say, and when you can't add value, choose silence. In quiet moments, when you reflect on past conversations, you might remember times you said too much. Maybe you shared something that wasn't yours to share, or reacted in a way that hurt someone. That realization stings, but it's also where growth begins. The person who learns from their words becomes wiser with time. They start catching themselves mid-sentence, thinking, "Does this need to be said?" That awareness is the first step toward mastering the tongue. It's interesting how children are taught to use words early on, to speak, to ask, to express, but rarely are they taught when not to. Silence isn't often valued in our culture, but it's one of the most powerful tools a person can develop. The ability to be quiet in chaos, to listen before responding, to pause before reacting, those are signs of strength, not submission. The person who listens deeply often sees more, feels more, understands more. Their silence becomes their insight. There's also a humility that comes with guarding your tongue. It's an acknowledgement that you don't always have the full story. When you hold back your opinion until you truly understand a situation, you save yourself from unnecessary embarrassment and from hurting others with assumptions. Words spoken too soon often age badly, but silence gives truth the time it needs to reveal itself. And when you finally do speak, your words carry more authority because they come from patience, not impulse. Some of the most painful lessons in life come from realizing that certain things should have been left unsaid. You can lose opportunities by talking too much, destroy trust by speaking too quickly, and hurt yourself by revealing too much to the wrong people. Not everyone who listens to you has your best interest at heart. Protecting your tongue is also about protecting your privacy. Not everything needs to be shared. Some parts of your life deserve silence, not exposure. The tongue, in many ways, is a mirror for discipline. If you can control it, you can control almost anything. Because the same patience it takes to hold your words back is the same patience it takes to make wise choices in other areas of life. The person who can pause before speaking can also pause before acting, before judging, before reacting. That pause is the difference between living with regret and living with intention. The more you practice controlling your tongue, the easier it becomes to spot when others haven't. You'll notice who speaks from pain and who speaks from peace. You'll start seeing how many people are driven by the need to be heard rather than the desire to understand. And you'll start choosing your conversations differently. Not every exchange deserves your voice, and not every person deserves access to your words. There's something liberating about realizing you don't always need to respond. You can observe without reacting, listen without commenting, and walk away without explaining. Silence protects your energy. It keeps you grounded when everything around you is trying to pull you into conflict. And eventually, it teaches you that peace isn't found in having the last word. It's found in not needing one. As you move through life, you'll meet people who talk endlessly but say nothing, and others who speak rarely but leave an impression every time they do. Aim to be the latter. Let your words carry intention, clarity, and kindness. Let them reflect thought, not impulse. Because in the end, your tongue will tell your story long before your actions do. And when people remember you, let them remember a voice that brought calm, not chaos, truth, not noise, presence, not pride. In the end, the tongue is one of the smallest parts of the body, yet it carries the most lasting power. It can build or destroy, heal or wound, bring peace or create chaos, all depending on how we choose to use it. What makes words so powerful is not just their sound, but the intent behind them. Every time you speak, you release something that cannot be taken back. You can apologize, you can try to explain, but the words themselves have already done their work. That's why wisdom lies in restraint. Knowing when to speak and when to be silent is one of life's most valuable skills. Controlling your tongue doesn't mean suppressing your thoughts or losing your voice. It means learning to express yourself in ways that bring clarity, not confusion, healing, not harm. There's a difference between speaking your truth and using your truth as a weapon. When your words come from a place of understanding instead of ego, they carry power without causing pain. You start to realize that maturity isn't about saying everything you think. It's about knowing which thoughts deserve to be spoken at all. The beauty of mastering your tongue is that it transforms every part of your life. It deepens your relationships because people feel safe around you. It strengthens your reputation because others begin to trust your word. It even gives you inner peace because you're no longer trapped in cycles of regret or guilt over words you can't take back. You begin to walk with a quieter confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Silence becomes your strength, not your weakness. You start to understand that being calm when others expect you to react is its own kind of victory. The less you speak out of impulse, the more weight your words carry when you finally choose to speak. People start to listen, not because you're the loudest voice in the room, but because they know your words are worth hearing. That's real influence. We live in a world that rewards noise. Everyone wants to be seen, to be heard, to make a statement. But the loudest voices aren't always the wisest ones. True wisdom often whispers. It shows up in the pause before a reaction, in the patience to understand, and in the discipline to let silence speak for you when words would only make things worse. There is power in peace, and that peace often begins with your tongue. So let your words be measured, your speech be thoughtful, and your silence be purposeful. Speak with grace, even when you're angry. Respond with patience, even when you're provoked. Choose words that bring warmth instead of wounds. Because at the end of the day, your tongue tells the story of your character. It reveals not only how you think, but who you are. And if you can master it, if you can truly control what you say, you'll find that you've mastered one of the hardest, yet most rewarding parts of life.